What up?
What up, Jefi?
We always say the same thing. Hi, Jefi. Hi, Ed. So we're just switching it up. What up?
What up? Okay, Jefi, I got a question for you.
Okay.
You ready?
I think.
We're getting into business planning, and I know that in the past we've done like a word of the year. I put mine on my laptop, so I look at it, so it kind of reminds me.
Yeah.
So what's a word of the year you're thinking about? What do you think it's going to be?
Well, I already know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Okay. It's going to be intention. I'm doing everything with intention.
Yes, intention. I thought about
intentional
like broccoli. I thought maybe it could be broccoli or like cauliflower or something like that. But no.
Just do it, dumbass. Is that one word?
Just do it. I find on the little label maker that extends out a little too far for me.
It's too far.
But
okay.
Intentional. Where we're headed with this, folks, is that working with intention in our business and in life is really, really important. And Jefi and I were both talking about what our theme we want to be for 2023. And it's intention. And so we want to talk about that today.
It's good. I see you have the definition of intention. I love that. You want to read it?
Yeah. So we're going to dive in first and talk about, what is intention? So looked it up, and it's an act or instance of determining mentally upon some action or result. So
That's
an act or instance of determining mentally upon some action or result, which really kind of comes down to like you're doing it on purpose. What's your purpose?
Yeah, I like that. Like if I could be Funk and Wagnall and make my own definition, I would say on purpose. Intentional equals on purpose.
Yeah, doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
And Jeff and I were talking about, okay, that's kind of, high level, what's it really mean like in your life? Like what are examples of where you do something on intention and how it starts to make a difference? Mm-hmm. And I thought about this morning. So I'm starting to get back into meditation, and the core of meditation is breathing. They always start you there, right? It's like, right. Okay, you need to work on your breathing, and they tell you how to breathe in and how to breathe out. And I'm like, well, geez, we breathe like kind of all the time, right? So you don't think about it. So when you're normally breathing, you're not being intention. You don't have any intention in that. You're just breathing. But then when you really slow it down and, go, in a meditative way, it's with intention, and it's a lot more difficult to do it that way.
It sure is. Isn't it funny when you start thinking about something? And I've done that in meditation before too, Ed, is where, okay, breathe in, breathe out. And then all of a sudden I'm like breathing weird and my rhythm's all off. And it really does transfer over into what we're going to talk about later. But one of the things that I had that was very intentional that we still haven't really divin. We haven't divin into it. We have not dove into this, but the cycling, I had to have a mindset and an intention to be able to complete one of the longest ride I've ever ridden. And you sure can get in your head and you can sure talk yourself out of it, but I had an intention of doing it. I didn't let my brain get in the way, and I reached the goal. So that's probably the most recent thing that I've done with absolute total intention.
Yeah. No, that's a great example. And I think, one more I was thinking about today, I'm back running, I'm training for a half marathon. And one day a week we work out on the track, and we do a very disciplined workout. Today it was, 400 meters with a 2-minute rest at a certain pace. Well, when you're out normally running, you're talking to people and you're daydreaming and you're not really thinking about it. But if you're trying to hit a certain time and then have a certain rest period and then repeat that, that's a very specific workout that has intention to it and will get you a result. Yeah, so those are kind of like 3 non-real estate examples. And what we want to do is dive into how you can use intention in your business to further your results and your satisfaction.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So, one of the things we have written down is to be on the lookout for that one small daily activity that makes a huge impact over a long period of time. Because we are talking about 2023 goals with our Buffini coaches, and I know I do, and I know you do. I'd be interesting to hear what others do, but I spend a lot of time preparing for this, like hours. So there's all these things I'm pulling in, and I had to stop and go, okay, this is too big. This is too much. There's too many things here. If I could just pick 3 things and do those things very well for 365 days, I think it will change my business exponentially.
Right. Yeah.
Is that kind of where your head is?
Yeah. I think it's, it's focusing on the activities that are going to have the highest results and doing that little extra thing or paying attention to that one detail.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I know I shared the story with you when I was working at Grubb and Ellis in commercial, we would say if there were realtors that were kind of working, but they weren't really working with intention, we called it they had a bad case to pretend busy. So they're
just
they were
moving
busy.
papers around.
They're zipping around, they're driving around, they're color coding their database, they're doing all these things, but they're not focusing on the activities that are going to generate the revenue. And so you don't want to have a bad case of pretend busy.
Agreed.
So, right.
Agreed. We also went through, just in the exercise of preparing for this 2023 goal, and we talked about some of the things that you and I had done over 22 that if we were more intentional, it would have made a much bigger impact. And I'm going to bring up the pie party because that's happening for myself and you next week.
Right.
And last year in my notes, and this is funny because you had the same thing happen, but
right.
I never gave a toast. I never stood up and said, hey guys, the reason you're here is because I love you. You support my business in ways that is just beyond measure. And oh, by the way, if you know of anybody who's looking to buy or sell in 23, I would love to be that person that you introduce them to. And in my brain, I think I always know, of course they know that, but with just a tweak of being intentional, it's a game changer.
Yeah. And I think it's amazing that we both made that mistake.
I know.
And you do all that preparation and all that work. And I know I used the story when we were talking about this. It's like if you went to the wedding and they've had this beautiful ceremony and it's all there, and then they forgot to take their vows. It's like that's the purpose. They were there.
Right. They're there to do that.
And it's like, and they're like, oh my gosh, honey, we forgot to take our vows. That's not going to happen. Right. So you want to make sure that like, you think what you're doing, it's like, what's the most important thing I need to be doing here?
Right.
Right. That's really, really important. I think it was also, we talked about when we were going through the year and where we missed on intention, not having a photographer.
Yeah. I mean, I did that baseball event that was about $500 a person. That was the most expensive event I've ever sponsored. And I have one photo and it's terrible.
Yeah.
It just, to me, I think, okay, number one, wouldn't my clients love a picture of themselves in a box seat checking out a baseball game in San Diego on the most beautiful sunny day ever? And what a cool card I could send, or, a follow-up, or nothing from my pie party, nothing from the baseball game. It's almost like, it's like being that 1 degree off.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And it's just this. So this is where this word kind of started burbling up in me, is that I just want to be uber intentional. The other thing was social media. Like, I did 0 social media posts that day. None. Some of my clients did some. And I have a love-hate with social media, and I think you do too, but
Right.
I do think that there is power in social media to have people see you at the forefront of whatever it is that you're doing. If you're a realtor and you want people to know that you're loving on your clients and, hey, do you want to be a part of this special event? But I didn't do any of that at all.
I think another one to be on the lookout for is, and I know you're this way too. It's like you want to go deep with the people that are there, and you can get in a very deep conversation, but there's some folks you don't have the opportunity to go as deep with. Follow up with them with a phone call and say, hey, it was so great to see you. And that I know we didn't, get a chance to talk as much as we'd like. And then start asking them some questions and follow up with that. I think that's a great one as well.
For me, it's a deeply genuine phone call with my clients. I really want to know what they have going on. And it's that whole wedding syndrome thing we were talking about earlier, is you have all these people and you want to go deep, and it's so hard to go deep there. I mean, people this last year have lost parents and they've had huge things happen in their lives. And if the only time I'm ever seeing them is a pie party, I really need to be intentional with the phone call after to follow up.
Right.
Yeah. One of the other things is the birthday cards on my desk. I think I pulled this out for you, but here, if you're watching us on YouTube, my lovely assistant, Lori, hand labels all my envelopes for me, and they all have stamps on them and they're all ready to go. So I haven't been sending them, right? Brian Buffini has a funny story about wanting to burn down his office so he can get rid of all of his envelopes that he never sent out. But so this week, I just started pulling them out and writing notes of gratitude. So instead of just going, oh, screw it, I'm just going to toss these cards out. So I intentionally said, okay, I have all these cards. They're already, or these envelopes all ready to go. I'm going to send a love note.
Yep. I have the same thing too. I had in the beginning of the year, I had Beth do envelopes for all my A pluses and A's so that I had them ready to go.
Yep.
And now I've got a pretty good stack of those that I need to continue to work through. So I've like separated them out and I'm hammering away at them, and knowing that I just need to be intentional in that behavior. So
exactly.
It's a really, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, and for me, I don't know about for you, but if I put it on my calendar as a task, it gets done because I follow my calendar pretty tightly. So if you're a person like me who has somebody who preps everything, but then you don't do it, what's the next step you can do to be intentional so that it actually does happen? And for me, that's putting it on my calendar as a task, because I hate seeing all those tasks pile up and not get done.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, where we're at on this is, you don't want to have a bad case of pretend busy. So you really want to look at your activities and then be asking yourself, what are the most important ones that can drive, your business? Right. And then go through and do the exercise of where you've been unintentional in your activities and be honest with yourself. And then I think we had a third point here that we wanted to talk about, Jefi.
Yeah. So another thing that I wasn't very intentional about, look at me airing all my dirty laundry. Do you have dirty laundry, buddy? You want to air some? Like, why is this all about me?
I'm following you. I'm airing it.
You're tracking. All right. I shouldn't say never. I don't intentionally lean into my business to business partners. I don't intentionally lead into people who are in alignment with my goal. So here's a perfect example. I have a great client. He introduces me to a solar guy. This solar guy, when we had this conversation, he and I we're tracking. Like he knows his business extremely well. He knows how to communicate what he does extremely well. He's obviously tied into one of my A+ clients. Okay, why is he not invited to my pie party? Okay, right. It's those type of things. Like, I have to be more intentional about who I'm touching, when I touch them, what is the process that happens after that? Because ultimately, I love to give more than I love to receive. So if I could give, said solar man, a whole bunch of referrals, that would make me feel amazing. And I'm sure that in reciprocation, he would want to do the same thing for me.
Yeah. And again, I fall short in that area too.
Yeah.
I can do a much better job on my business to business referrals. I give a ton of
Yeah.
referrals out. I mean, for painters, roofers, waterproofers, you name it, we maintain a list and
Right.
we give those out. And
Right.
I definitely could be more intentional with working to have that same reciprocation back to my business, which I'm sure they'd be
Right.
more than happy to do, but I haven't focused on that. And that's a missed
Right.
opportunity for everybody, right? Because they want their
Mm-hmm.
clients to get good service. I want my
Yeah.
clients to get good service. We need to help support each other in that. So
Right.
that's another one. It's really kind of
Yeah.
that focus of thinking beyond your normal activity with your past clients and looking like, who are the people that can help sponsor what you're into to help
Sure.
people as well as to
Absolutely.
send you some business your way.
And that brings us to point 3, which is some things we can do to be intentional.
Right. And again, it's the little extras, right? And we talked about,
Mm-hmm.
why don't we ask, right? We really want to make sure that when we're doing our events or we're interacting with folks, that it's like you open up the opportunity for asking for the referral, for asking for the support.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to miss that. I think part of the reason why we might miss that is it might feel a little uncomfortable. It might, our ego might get involved in there.
Yep.
But they're kind of waiting for it in the right environment. So
Mm-hmm.
we get back to the toast, right?
Yeah.
We didn't do that. We've got past clients there that have supported our business. So again, to use the wedding analogy, we all kind of want that toast moment from the father of the
Mm-hmm.
bride, right? And
Right. Right.
kind of get that magic moment. You want to give them that. You want to give them
Yeah.
that.
You definitely do. You know, I think for me, if I'm going to follow through on what I'm saying right now to all of our listeners and to you and my coach, if being intentional in 2023 or starting today is the word I'm choosing and the most important thing, I need a list because I'm a list person of what that looks like. What is that? What do I need to do on my calls? What do I need to do to be intentional in my notes? What do I need to do to be intentional at my parties? And obviously, my list is different than yours. It's different than people listening. And, you guys are all going to have different words that you choose if you so choose to choose a word, right?
Right.
But I needed a lane. I needed a lane to get into that's back to basics. And that word intentional really resonated with me. In that, I want to throw this in there because I actually wrote it down and we haven't talked about it. There are so many apps that you can use that will help you streamline the things that you do in your business. And one of those apps is an app that you can use for when you take a photo of your client or you take a picture of them at their new house or opening the door for the first time. You can instantly create a postcard or a card. And we're going to link these in the show links, but there's TouchNote and Ink are two of the ones that I use. They're both really inexpensive. You can sit in your car the second you leave them, and then within 7 days, they have a postcard with that picture.
So this is awesome because one of the things, and I'm glad to hear about this, because one of the
Yeah.
things we're talking about with our party is that we're going to have a photographer there. We're going to have this.
Mm-hmm.
We need to send an actual physical photo or card
Right.
to
Right.
the attendees so that they have that as part of the thank you. And we thought, gee, wouldn't it be
Yeah.
great if we could just have the thank you card be the picture, right? How do we do that? Well,
Right.
here we go. So thank
There
you
you
for
go.
that.
You're
That's a
welcome.
great one. And getting back to you mentioned getting back to the basics, and I want to tell this story, so I'll beat up on myself a little bit.
Oh,
In North
good. Thank
Carolina, we
God.
use attorneys for the closing process, and we actually have a ceremonial closing meeting where all the documents are signed, and it's held
Mm-hmm.
there. And COVID, we couldn't be in the office for those. And we
Mm-hmm.
got comfortable with that. And so it became very easy to not go to those closings. And what we would do is we'd do the walkthrough before, and we'd hand the key, or we'd hold the keys until recording, but we'd go through the home, and then we'll send them to closing. And then after we record, then we get them the key. Well, that's great. That saves time. Well, my closing this last week, we had some difficulties, and I'm like, I'm going to this closing. I need to make sure everything's going smoothly. And it was at
Yeah.
that closing. And it was such a beautiful moment. And I forgot what that was like. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, Ed, shame on you. You are going to be intentional in this and go to every closing, because this is a big, big deal for your client. And yeah, you've had that moment, when you're in the home with them and going through, and yes, you're going to give them the gift, but when they kind of, everything's signed,
it's big.
I mean, she was just about in tears, right? I mean, and we took a moment and celebrated it, and we don't want to miss that.
No, you don't. And I think something that's really important, because I'm somebody that takes in all this information like a fire hose, and I'm like, I got to do it all. I have to do it all. You don't have to do it all. You just have to pick. And for me, I would choose it in this order. What is going to have the highest impact for my client? What is going to make them feel the best? And maybe there's 4 things. Maybe there's 2. Who knows what those are? But even just listening to you about going to the closing, because we don't do that here in California. We don't have the attorney like roundtable meeting. And that's a big minute. That you're like signing these papers, and all of a sudden you're a homeowner, or you've just sold a home and you're moving on to your next thing. That's pivotal. That's massive.
Yeah.
So I need to choose my massive moments.
Yeah, you need that massive moment. And the attorney, some of the attorneys are really good at creating that drama. There was one attorney in town. He's got this, old style office, and he pulls the drapes closed, and there's a little bit of showmanship there. And it's just,
That's
they do a
awesome.
nice job with it.
Yeah.
And it was nice to be back in it and doing it. And I'm like, I'm not missing another one.
Yeah.
They're worth going. And doing
I think that's so great. And I would challenge our listeners to pick one thing you can commit to. Maybe that's 5 calls a day. Maybe that's going to the closings. Maybe that's, drinking more water. Maybe that's meeting 10 people a month, or, you create it, but just commit to that thing, because the compounding effect of that one thing is going to make a huge difference.
Right. And I think we both would argue that it's not the big spectacular thing once, it's the little thing many, many times that makes the difference.
Yeah.
So I think with that, you're asking yourself, are you pretend busy? Know why, what you're doing and when you're doing it. And then think about, again, what are the actions you can take to hit your target goal?
Yeah.
And be intentional.
I love it. Good job, Mr. Billings.
I think that's a good one. So with that, that's a wrap, everyone. We hope you enjoyed it. We'd love to hear back on what your word is. If you're going to have a word that's going to be the key one for your next year, shoot it back to us. We'd love that.
All right, you guys. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you.
Take care.